Welcome to Under Two Capes. I'm Jared, and today I have a very special guest, the Truth 31 from YouTube. Truth, welcome to Under Two Capes.
Hello, hello, hello. Thank you for having me on. It's awesome. Good to be here.
Now, as the audience will know, I am a pretty big Zack Snyder fan from particularly his DC movies. I will die on the hill that BVS is one of the best movies of all time. I will die on that hill.
I mean, it's a hill that everybody seems like in the Snyderverse community will die on as well.
Oh yeah. So I brought on some backup to talk about just really the Snyderverse in general and why, at least I think, it's better than the whole MCU. That's just my hot take for the day.
Ooh, fighting words.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, trust me, I've gotten into fights with that. So first, I got a couple of questions I always ask new guests. So what got you into comics and or DC?
Well, my introduction to DC was the Batman animated series. I was 6 years old, watching the first episode, and I was just amazed, like, wow, like, who is this Batman? Like, what is this world? Even at 6 years old, I was like, I knew I was witnessing something special and unique because, like, the cartoons I used to watch wasn't like this. This was very adult and mature, but still had that kid-friendly vibe to it. So I thought the balance was great. So that was my introduction. And then I never was really into comics. It was mostly through the animated shows like the Batman, the Superman animated series. That's what made me fall in love with Superman as a character. I was just like, okay, like what is this DC world? And then that's where I was going into my introduction to the comics based on the animated show. So I read, mostly DC comics, the Batman comics, the Superman comics, and all that stuff. So and then I fell off for a little bit. I got older, school, girls, all that stuff.
Of course.
Yeah. And then I watched Man of Steel.
Oh,
because the previous Superman films, like Superman Returns, wasn't really my jam. I was just like, okay, I like Brandon Routh. I think he's great. But I was just like, okay. And then I watched Man of Steel. I was like, wow. I was like, okay, like what? Like this is a Superman movie I've always wanted to see my entire life. And Man of Steel will always hold a special place in my heart because after watching that movie, I was like, listen, I need to go back into reading comics. And that was my journey into reading comics again based on Man of Steel. Because I was like, this is it. Like, this is a Superman movie that I wanted to see. Like,
the modern Superman movie.
Yeah, like they got it. Just like with Nolan with Batman films, he got that. Snyder got with Superman, he got it. He nailed it. And that was my journey back into DC Comics again. So, like I said, Man of Steel will always have that special place in my heart for me.
That's interesting because you and I share a very similar journey back into comics because I got into DC from like the Justice League Unlimited cartoon.
Yeah.
Quality entertainment right there.
Yeah, it's a great show.
And so I got on and off into comics. It wasn't really my thing. And then the Snyder Cut gets announced. And then I was like, okay, you know what? It's because typically what I'll do is that if there's like a movie coming out that I really like, I'll just go back and read my comics just to like get reacquainted.
Refresh, yeah.
And then I was like, why wasn't I reading this stuff before? I'm reading like Blackest Night and I'm like, this is dope.
This is so good. Like why isn't this translated into live action? I need to see this on big screen.
So the next question, I get the feeling I know what the answer is, but DC or Marvel, which is better?
Well, again, it's all subjective, right? It all depends on your taste. Obviously, I'm a DC fan. I'm a DC guy through and through. I enjoy Marvel. I enjoy the Marvel movies. I think they're great. I think they're fun entertainment. But for me, there's just something deeper and mythological about DC that Marvel doesn't have. And that's no fault to Marvel, but there's just something more. There's a sense, even with the comics and Zack Snyder films, that there's a sense of grandeur to these films and comics that no other comic book publishing company has. And I think that's what separates it from. I think that's what makes DC and Zack Snyder films in particular so unique from everybody else.
Yeah, exactly. And that's really a lot of my thoughts too on why I like DC more, because I'm more of a fan on Greek myth, and then DC is seemed a lot more aligned with like all the themes and like the general, because the Justice League are basically the gods of Olympus. So There you go. And obviously, Zack Snyder hammers that point in really hard in every one of his movies. So I'm like, oh, I like this guy.
But I love that, especially that scene in Zack Snyder's Justice League where we're introduced to Aquaman, and the women around him just like they smell his shirt and they sing and they're like worshiping. Like Aquaman is basically Poseidon in this universe, right? Because they're worshiping as a god. And I love that little touch that Zack Snyder does, especially in BVS, where we get that montage of Superman saving people.
Yeah.
And we get that beautiful image of the woman looking up to the sky. They're worshiping him as a god. Like these are the gods, the Greek gods of this earth. And the way Zack Snyder treats it with such respect and such love and care. That's what I love about this. For me, anyway.
Exactly. Another scene that really speaking of Superman being treated as a god is that scene in BVS where like he saves that girl from a fire and he lands and everyone's laying on hands of him. So I'm like,
they're all touching.
I'm like, plus the fact Superman like 80 times throughout the Snyderverse assumes the Christ T pose. So I'm like, okay, I get what you're doing, Zach. You're kind of hitting it on the head there.
Well, I like it though. It is like that's part of the character. It's like, okay, sure, I get it, Zach. I get it.
And also, Superman is the Jesus Christ of the DC universe. So I'm like, you're gonna have that.
Yeah, he's the savior of everyone in this universe. Again, but I like that. It shows respect and a level of understanding of who Superman is. And again, that's why I love Zack Snyder.
Yeah, and I don't think he gets enough credit for, first off, how comic book accurate his stuff is, but because it's like when you look at it, it's like take for instance when BVS came out, that not a lot of people like Affleck because Batman doesn't kill, but these are the same people that pulled up Michael Keaton as the best Batman. I'm like, he dropped a grenade in someone's pants. I'm pretty sure he killed someone. I'm pretty sure
he burned someone alive in Batman Returns with his Batmobile. So it's like, okay, how do you justify that?
I never know. There's a lot of like logical inconsistencies with these people, bro. All right. What's your favorite comic book event?
It has to be a recent one, the Dark Side War.
That's mine too.
Yeah, I love that. First of all, like the art by Francis Manapul, Jason Fabak or Fabik. Like that whole event was. I was like, wow, like this is good. And even though it was by Jeff Johns, which I don't know how you feel about Jeff Johns. That's a whole other issue. Yeah. But just strictly on the comic book aspect in the writing, I thought like, wow, like this is what I would love to see in DC films. And I think this is what Zack Snyder's team, and even Jeff Johns to a certain extent, probably not copied, but borrowed heavily from all these books and stuff like that. Because I can clearly see inspirations like, oh, that looks a little familiar.
I'm like, wait a second here.
Yeah, like, what's going on here? But again, I love that. That's why the source material is there to borrow heavily from. But yeah, I think Dark Side War was one of my favorites. And because I Injustice, I love Injustice. That's
again
so good.
Heavily inspired in the Snyderverse.
Yeah, the nightmare. Hey, evil Superman, right? But it's like Zack Snyder doesn't understand the characters. Like, no, this isn't basically like Zack Snyder's DC films are Elseworld stories. Yeah, that's essentially what they are. And to be honest, some of the best DC books are Elseworld stories.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, wait a second. You do realize he's heavily grabbing from Dark Knight Returns, right?
Oh, yeah.
He's not taking from the main universe. And I'm like, all you have to do is watch BVS. And I'm like, okay, I see what you're doing here. He even uses lines from the book in the movie.
Yeah. And it works because, Zack Snyder loves Frank Miller. He adapted 300. So obviously Zack Snyder's a fan of Frank Miller. But especially in BVS, like BVS is heavily inspired by Dark Knight Returns, which again, that's why I love Affleck because I love that version interpretation of Batman. And like I said, these are all interpretations.
Of course.
So it's just like all this narrative about Zack Snyder's ruining the DC universe. Like you can't ruin anything. Like he's not ruining anything. Like stop it. Like the hyperbolic rhetoric from these fans. It's so irritating at times.
Yeah. And this is actually a good segue into my next question. I will say the one criticism I have of Zack Snyder's universe is is the forced romance air quotes between Wonder Woman and Batman. I never liked that pairing in the comics. But let me ask you this: are you more Batman and Wonder Woman or Superman and Wonder Woman?
I think I would prefer Batman and Wonder Woman.
Oh boy.
I know.
Sorry,
I think it's because I'm so used to Superman and Lois, and I love that relationship. But again, I'm not one of those fans who are like what? Superman and Wonder Woman, what is this? This is absolute garbage.
Yeah.
Like, no, I was like, okay, like again, interpretation, right? It's a take that I didn't mind. I was like, okay, cool. I was like, that's cool. But I don't know. To me, I think it made a little more sense to have Batman and Wonder Woman, don't you think? Because they're both kind of how can I say, they both have that warrior spirit that they're not afraid to go dark.
But the issue with that, and I argued this because we did a couple of episodes debating this, is the reason why I don't think it works because, okay, so Wonder Woman's central tenet is truth, right? I mean, she has the lasso of truth. Batman basically lies to the entire Justice League and doesn't tell them, I have plans to kill all you people. So I'm like, Wonder Woman included. So it's just the fact that Batman lies to literally everyone or lies of omission. I get the whole opposites attract thing, but when they're at opposite, it just doesn't really work in my mind. But I can kind of see where people get that from.
Yeah. I get it. Is that one of those things that, like, you know, I feel strongly one way or the other, right? It's just like, okay, if it's there, cool. If it's not, okay.
What's hilarious is I did a poll on our Instagram. It's like, how many of you like asking people to give me your arguments for either the Wonder Woman or Superman and Wonder Woman. So anyway, no one knew that there was a comic book series for Superman and Wonder Woman's relationship in the New 52. So immediately I call up my co-host and I'm like, okay, we're covering this now.
I'm surprised like no one knew, because like that was like really prominent in the New 52 universe.
Yeah. That was like on Facebook, all the news articles, and I was like, "Wait a second, how do you not?"
The power couple, Superman.
They knew the relationship existed. They just didn't know there was a comic book series examining it. Which I'm like, that's also on DC because DC has had a terrible time advertising stuff. So
yeah, especially with their comics and I feel like their animated movies as well. I feel like their animated movies should get more promotion because they're really good for the most part. So I don't know why it doesn't get that much attention or coverage.
Plus, let's put it this way: DC animated movies are the one group of films that consistently destroy anything with a Marvel logo on it.
Oh yeah, 100%. Well, I don't know if you can make the argument now with the What If series on Disney Plus. I don't know if you watched that.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, that's Marvel approaching that level of goodness. So they're catching up.
Yeah, but they're not there yet.
DC did try to rush Injustice, which I'm like, as an Elseworlds version of the storyline, it was fine. Yeah. But first off, why are you taking that massive comic book event into one movie? And why do you change the things you change?
It should have been a series like Invincible. Just like 1 season, 2 seasons, 3 seasons. And just like, I watched Injustice. I was like, what? This is not it.
The Flash dies. I'm like, wait a second here.
When did this happen? I said I had to like go back and read Injustice. Like, wait a minute, did that happen? Like, no, it is. Why did they change it?
No, but dude, if they made an actual comic accurate Injustice, but with the blood and gore of Invincible, that would be dope as hell.
Oh my god, it would have been amazing. I don't know why anyone at DC was like, hey, let's just do this as a series.
I'm like, Jim Lee, you're supposed to know all this.
Is anyone in charge here? Like, what's going on?
That's another question. But all right, next one. Most underrated comic book movie or TV series?
Ooh, does it have to be DC?
I said comic book.
Oh, comic book. Underrated comic book. I feel like the New 52 Aquaman doesn't get enough love.
That's true. Well, Aquaman in general doesn't get enough love. Well, actually, until Momoa, everyone thought the dude was a joke.
Yeah. It's like Aquaman. It's like, please. But then Jason Momoa comes in and suddenly, again, kudos to Zack Snyder and Jason Momoa for taking that character. It's like, okay, everybody knows this is a joke character. So let's just, cast one of the biggest baddest dudes in Hollywood. And Jason Momoa is like, okay, and guess what? I don't hear any Aquaman jokes from now on.
Yes, and here's how you know it was a good idea. DC changed the appearance of Aquaman in the comics to look more like Momoa.
It was awesome.
I'm like, the minute you have Aquaman being thrown by Cyborg going, my man, I'm like, yes. By the way, that was the one part of the Snyder Cut where I was like, please be in here, please be in here.
Yeah,
please.
I was like, please.
And then he said, but I'm like, I knew it was going to be in there because that's a Zack Snyder thing. There's no way Whedon was that smart.
I was like, thank God it's in here. Yeah. But the new 52 Aquaman was great.
Rebirth Aquaman was dope.
Rebirth Aquaman had a great run. Mm-hmm. Like, let me say this: DC Rebirth was fantastic at first.
Yes,
every book was hitting. I lost so much money on DC Rebirth with Superman, Aquaman, Batman Detective, Action Comics, especially the Superman and Superman Action Comics were phenomenal. Those were my favorite books. And then I don't know what happened. It kind of just lost traction.
They brought in Brian Michael Bendis. That's what happened.
Yeah. I tried to give that book a run with Brian Michael Bendis, and I was just like, yeah, this is just not for me anymore.
Yeah, I was on a live stream the other day, and we were supposed to talk about what we want to see out of the new Crisis, and I said I want a reboot that completely makes it so Bendis has never touched anything DC. Yeah. Ever. Because really, when you think about it, for someone that's as revered as Bendis, and I will admit his Marvel work is fantastic, but when it comes to DC, for some reason, it doesn't work.
Yeah, it was just lost in translation. It just wasn't a great fit at all. I was just like, again, I tried reading the Brian Michael Bendis Superman. I gave it a shot, but I'm just like, yeah, this is just, I'm sorry. I can't, it's not working for me.
The minute he tried to put in like a plot line where it was unknown if Lois Lane was cheating on Clark with Lex Luthor, I was like, okay, no, I'm done. I'm out.
Yeah, and they aged up Jonathan Kent. I don't know why they did that. That was weird. It's like totally unnecessary. I was just like, what are you doing? It's like, because again, the Superman Rebirth, I love that relationship with Superman and Jonathan Kent. Like that was great. Mm-hmm. But it just didn't work. I was just like, yeah, this is not for me. Sorry.
What about your most underrated comic book movie? It doesn't have to be DC.
Underrated comic book movie. I really like the director's cut of Ben Affleck's Daredevil. I think that movie.
Really?
Yeah, I think it's underrated.
There was a director's cut of that? I didn't know that.
Yeah, there was a director's cut. There was more scenes with Ben Affleck as a lawyer, more courtroom scenes. Okay. It was a little more violent. We had a little more scenes with Kingpin or Michael Clark Duncan, which really like fleshed out his character a little bit more. You see a pattern with Ben Affleck and director's cuts. It's really good.
Oh yeah. Never mind Zack Snyder and director's cuts.
Yeah. Oh my God, that's another story. But yeah, I mean, you still have the stupid stuff with Bullseye, Colin Farrell, and the bench scene with Jennifer Garner's Elektra. That's still there, but there are other scenes in it that I was like, wow, like this is like as a film. I think if they would have released a director's cut of this in theaters, I think people would have warmed up to it a little bit more because I think it's really good. It's really underrated. Speaking
of releasing a director's cut that would have made people like this movie more, remember when Affleck was cast as Batman and we were all like, oh no, and then we see the movie and we're like, can this guy play Batman forever?
Oh my! Like when Ben Affleck was cast as Batman, he was like the joke of like people were making memes. They were like, are you serious? Ben Affleck, which is weird because this was Ben Affleck when he was doing, Argo, The Town, and Gone Baby Gone. So he like kind of rebranded in a way his career and his image. So I wasn't like really like Ben Affleck. No, this is gonna be horrible. I was like, okay, not my first pick, but like we'll see. And then that first pick of him at Comic-Con where we saw the headshot of him in the cowl, I was like, what the? I was like, are you kidding me? I was like, dude, that's it. This is awesome. This is amazing. And then we saw, the trailer and everything. I was just like, dude, like
what sold me as Batman was actually watching BVS because up until the following scene, I was like, okay, this guy's pretty decent. Then when I see the warehouse scene,
oh my God.
Then I was like, okay, so first off, that's when I definitely realized that I love Zack Snyder, because he basically made the movie version of an Arkham game. So I'm like, much. Oh, this is so dope. And then I just love, first off, they gave him a voice changer, so he's not having to do the whole Bale. Where's the trigger? Yeah. I'm like, why didn't no one do this before? This is way
Especially
better.
Nolan. Like you would think Nolan would be the first one to think of this, but
okay. And then it's Batman with like machine guns on the bat plane. So I'm like, oh, okay. That's one of my favorite scenes in Zack Snyder's Justice League, after he crashes and the parademons are going into the dropship. The lights of the Batmobile turn on and they just guns down the parademons.
That was awesome. I think everything about his performance was great. The costume was amazing. It was like that Jim Lee Dark Knight Returns costume. I just love the look of his Bruce Wayne. I love his Bruce Wayne. I think he's like the first actor where I love this Bruce Wayne and I love this Batman equally. Yeah. Mm-hmm. As opposed to, like, you know, previous actors where it's just like, I love your Batman, but not your Bruce Wayne. Or I love your Bruce Wayne, but not really your Batman. To me, Ben Affleck is the only actor that I was like, I love both versions. I love your Bruce Wayne and I love your Batman. So he's the go for me.
My favorite is, this was after Wonder Woman came out, and I was driving to school listening to NPR for some reason, and they were talking about Wonder Woman. They were saying this is what Batman versus Superman should have been like, because we're so dark and depressing. And I'm like, first off, it's really a Batman movie, and you're talking about a dude. Even my mom was like, you're talking about a dude that watched his parents get gunned down at a very young age. What are you talking? And then me, I'm like, this is why these movie reviewers should not review comic book movies, because they don't get that it's a different character.
Yeah, and they always compare it to Marvel. It's almost like it feels like they would compare Star Trek to Star Wars. Well, they're both set in space, so how come? Where are all the philosophical debates in Star Wars? It's like, no, like they're different brands. Star Wars is lightsabers and fighting. Star Wars is more of the intellectual, philosophical debates about society. Like, just because Marvel and DC are both comic books doesn't mean they want or should do the same thing. And why do you want the same thing? I don't understand that.
And it's like there were some people, even with the Matt Reeves Batman movie that came out, where they were like, it's not funny like a Marvel movie. I'm like, because it's not a Marvel movie.
It's Batman, like the least funny character in comics.
I know. I'm like, wait a second here. Who goes into a Batman movie expecting to be happy the whole time?
Yeah, like this is not Thor Ragnarok, bro. I'm sorry, but you know,
these are the same people that probably would have given like Batman and Robin and like Batman Forever high marks. I'm like, okay.
Oh yeah. Even though I do love Batman Forever because I grew up with that as a kid. Right. So I love that movie. Batman and Robin is garbage, though. But I love Batman Forever.
I'm like, a lot of these movies I watched them, I'm like, I get what they were going for, but it's like, why?
Yeah, like you missed the mark, bro.
All right. Final question before we get into a general discussion. What inspired you to start your channel?
The pandemic. The pandemic literally shut everything down for me. All I had to do was, go to work and then come home, and that was it. Mm-hmm. So I was just like, okay, where I can't really see family and friends all that often. So what am I gonna do? Well, okay, I guess I'll just start a YouTube channel. And I started there, started doing StreamYard, where I literally talked to no one. I was literally talking to myself because I had no viewers, no engagement. And I started making, Flash CW videos and, comic book reviews here and there. And then I started talking about the Snyderverse because there were so many of these big YouTubers that were constantly bashing Man of Steel, constantly bashing BVS, and constantly were like, the Snyder Cut doesn't exist. It would never happen. We know better. We know what's going on because we're in the know. And that just really annoyed me. So I was like, you know what? I'll just start a channel. I'll try to, provide, my insights and, give my take. And slowly but surely, it started getting traction. I was like, okay. I was like, wow, like people are watching. That's awesome. And then it kind of just, took off from there. But that's where I essentially started my YouTube channel, was the pandemic. So it was kind of a blessing and a curse at the same time.
Yeah, with us, it started because a buddy of mine and I needed something to do during the pandemic because we couldn't like hang out. Then the Snyder Cut gets announced, and I'm like, well, I know what we're doing. And then it was like and it turned out that all of our Snyderverse stuff was like some of our most watched content. So I'm like, okay, I guess we're doing this now.
People are actually watching.
Yeah, I'm like, wait a second here, this is great. And then we started getting a lot of traction because apparently people like positive depictions of the Snyderverse, particularly after Zack Snyder's Justice League. Because if you notice, after the Snyder Cut came out, the whole narrative around the Snyderverse rapidly changed to the point where even Rotten Tomatoes was like, we were wrong to give Man of Steel a horrible rating. And I'm like, oh, wait a second. You mean we were right the whole time?
Like, this is what we were saying from the very beginning, people. Thank you. You're late to the party, but at least you showed up.
I did an episode with Enosh from Poindexter Lounge, and and we took an article from 2017 critiquing BVS and went through it and like refuted all the points. It was kind of funny is that all of these points, and I mean that sincerely, all of them were made by someone who clearly didn't watch the movie. And I'm like, wait a second here.
That's typically how it goes, right? It's like, oh, it feels like you didn't watch the movie. Oh, you didn't watch the movie. Okay, or you misinterpreted it, which is fine. But yeah, like all of the complaints are just like, I can easily just refute this, change this, and it's like, yeah.
Yeah, it's I'm like, okay, so, and then my favorite are the people once again that keep trying to say that Zack Snyder does not understand the characters or that his movies are not comic accurate. I'm like, what comics are you reading? Yeah,
it's just like wait, like I feel like Zack Snyder is the only director that is so slavish to the source material.
Yeah,
that it's almost like, wow, it's like, thank you. It's like, thank you for showing respect to all these characters.
Yes. It was kind of funny is that when the executives take over, you notice how the movies that come out aren't exactly the highest quality, like Wonder Woman 1984, or as we both know very well, Justice League.
Oh my, yeah, that was just a whole nother level of train wreck. I was like what happened? It's like it's almost, it's not even so bad it's good. It's so bad that it's kind of hard to watch. Like it's so cringe and you feel uncomfortable, especially like when you know the backstory. Just like, dude, I can't watch this. Like I literally can't watch this. It's so bad.
It's like when I first got out of the movie, I was like, okay, that was pretty cool. It was a Justice League movie. I had those blinders on, and then Zach posts on Vero all the stuff that was taken out. Then I hear the backstory and I'm like, okay, that's it. I want this. And I kid you not, when we were sitting down to watch the Snyder Cut, in my mind, what kept going through my head like a mantra is, please don't suck, please don't suck, please don't.
Yes.
It would be really disappointing if that sucked.
Like we were all on pins and needles, like, oh my God, like what if this is not going to be great? And then we watched it. It was like, okay, this is great. Zack Snyder, you're the man.
Yeah, I was sold the minute the Superman entrance in the final battle scene happened with the axe in the shoulder, or the Flash running back in time that won an Oscar.
Yeah.
So I'm like, wait, I'm like, oh, this is way better. What are you talking? And second off, I'm like, why would you take this out? That was my other thing I kept saying while watching the movie. I'm like, why would you take this stuff out?
Those were the exact same thoughts I had. It was just like who was watching Zack Snyder's cut and said, yeah, this doesn't work. This is not good. It's like, well, are you serious? Like, are you kidding me right now? It's like I want names, I want numbers, I want addresses. I want it's like who literally watched Zack Snyder's cut? It's like, yeah, this is garbage, guys. We need to completely rework everything. It's like you guys should be fired, all of you. From top to bottom.
Fortunately, with the Discovery merger, a lot of those people were fired. But it's like when you look at the Flash scene, I'm like, you took that out?
Yeah, because they didn't understand it. That was the reason that they gave.
And how come even the normies understood it?
Yeah, like what is hard to understand? He's reversing everything. It's like, well, you guys, is this the same studio that made Inception and Interstellar? But you guys,
I'm like, wait a second. Why would you replace the Superman coming in with the axe hitting his shoulder with he just shows up and goes, I believe in truth? I'm like, replace the scene where he goes, oh, I'm not impressed, bro, and they just completely destroy stuff. The great thing about that scene, by the way, is that throughout the entire movie, they keep like hinting that the forces of apocalypse are scared of Kryptonians, and then Superman shows up, and I'm like, okay, that's why.
Yeah, it makes so much more sense.
I'm like, wait a second here.
Or why even remove the black suit because the studio said it was too scary, but yet in Man of Steel he wears a black suit.
Yeah.
So I'm just like, I don't understand the logic here.
And have you read the comics?
Yeah, it's just like I was baffled. I was like, what is like this studio is incompetent.
Exactly. In fact, actually watching the Snyder Cut kind of got me a little angry too, because I'm like, we could have had this 4 years ago.
Yeah.
You don't even have to put out the full 4 hours. You could have had them like trim it down a little bit, put it in the movie theaters, and then just release the 4-hour cut on DVD. That would have been something.
Yeah, and I don't know how you feel about the 4-hour cut. For me, it goes by like that.
Yes,
like
I love that quick too. Well, here's the thing. What's kind of funny is that it's been compared to like Lord of the Rings. Lord of the Rings is much longer. Feels much longer.
And Warner Brothers could have easily released a 3-hour cut of this movie. Easily.
Oh yeah, easily.
Because like the pacing for this film is just like boom, 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 boom. Like you're out of there. Just like, wait a minute, it's 4 hours already? Like, wow.
Yeah, it's like when we were watching it, it's like it's already at part 3, and I'm like, wait a second here. It feels like if it was kind of funny, it feels like the actual length they wanted Justice League to be in. It feels like 2 hours.
And Justice League feels longer.
Justice League feels like an eternity. As someone that grew up on the Justice League, I'm sorry if I'm not into Avengers with Justice skins on them, okay?
Yeah, it's just like, and that's what the studio wanted. They wanted Avengers 2.0. Just like, dude, like that's not what, no. That's
what's kind of funny. If you look at all the criticisms that have been levied at Zack Snyder's like directing style with the DC characters, all of that is because of studio mandates. They said, we want a Justice League. Get us there now. So he had to like do his best to set it up, because he has said that he didn't want to jump to Justice League, but they made him do it.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, guys, you're blaming the wrong dude.
Yeah, and he had to, make do with what he had, and I thought he did a great job with what he had to do. I was like, okay, well, this is the best.
It's like even with the Atlantean scenes, where like they're speaking like dolphins, and then everyone's like, why aren't they actually speaking? Because they didn't tell him what to do. They didn't give him anything. What do you expect him to do?
It's just so sad that everyone blames Zack Snyder, but I feel like the narrative slowly but surely is changing around Zack Snyder and his DC movies, especially like when you mentioned the Rotten Tomatoes and people are actually supporting and liking the Snyder Cut. I was like, I mean, when you actually let directors direct and let them tell their vision,
Nolan is a good example of this. Good content. Nolan's a good example of them. His Batman trilogy is beloved, although I have severe issues with some portions of it, i.e. the Batman voice, but still. Yeah. But it's like, and also when you look at Snyder's movies, here's why I think they weren't liked originally, because and it gets into like they're not Marvel movies, kind of. It's because they're not all like a joke fest that they can just blindly watch. You actually do have to like think through this, and I'm like, oh, I see what that's talking about, instead of just watching it going, that was fun, let's go see the next one.
It's like a Disney ride attraction with Marvel. Again, like that's not a knock on them. That's what they wanted, and that's been consistent for them for years. But Zack Snyder's like, listen, these characters are great. Like these stories are much more than just bam pow. Like let's actually tell a deeper, rich story with some philosophical, religious themes in it that actually like resonate with people today. And I think that's why these movies have the staying power that they have. And that's why people still to this day talk about Man of Steel. They still talk about BVS. And now, with Zack Snyder's Justice League, I feel like with Zack Snyder's Justice League, it's more, how can I say, mainstream than maybe Man of Steel BVS. But again, I think that's why it worked, because I don't know how you feel about this, but I feel like Zack Snyder's Justice League is the most comic booky of his work.
Yeah, I agree with you on that one.
Yeah, which again, I love it. It still have still has those dark themes and undertones, but I feel like it's more mainstream, which again I like because I love Zack Snyder's Justice League.
Plus, like, here's the thing: I remember specifically, first off, being completely shocked with the positive reception of the Snyder Cut. I mean, I figured I knew it was going to be better than Justice League because you get so many people that are anti-Snyder. They have told me. I will say Zack Snyder's Justice League was way better, and I'm like, at least we can agree on that. I'll take that. We'll talk about that. But it's like the other thing that was trending besides Zack Snyder's Justice League was I was wrong about Zack Snyder. People rewatching BVS and Man of Steel going, that makes sense now. And I'm like, and my reaction was, it's almost like you have to be patient.
He's like telling a long form story, which again I love. And like you said, people are just not patient. It's like we want it now. We want things resolved quickly. It's like just wait, just let the man tell his story. Don't worry, it all makes sense. Especially with the nightmare sequence in BVS, when they first watched that, it's like, what is this? Like, where did this come from? And then you watch Zack Snyder's Justice League, you're like, oh, okay. Oh, now I know what he was trying to do. Oh, okay. I'm like, yeah, it's like just wait, just be patient.
Yeah. And then when you read like his storyboards on where the storyline was going, and I'm like, first off, going back to what we're talking about favorite comic book stories, when I was reading those storyboards, I'm like, so this is basically Dark Side War.
Yeah.
Except Batman's not on a chair that gives him all the knowledge in the universe, but it's pretty much Dark Side War.
Which would have been amazing if you saw that. Oh my God.
All I want is Superman to show up and beat up Darkseid. That's what I want.
Yeah, I want to see that, and I want to see the evil version of Superman with Henry Cavill, because I think Henry Cavill can pull up both, which would be awesome. He can.
And then the one thing I want to see Zack Snyder's version of the Green Lantern Corps, because they're supposed to show up at the end, and I'm like, oh please, because I want at some point I want to hear them do the oath in unison as they're blasting Parademons.
Yes.
Like, come on. Please, just give me that one thing, and you will earn my loyalty forever, Zach. You already have it, but you'll get more.
At least he gave us that one shot Kilowog, just like dead on the floor.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, Kilowog.
Awesome. And then Jon Stewart was supposed to be at the end of Snyder Cut, but Warner Brothers be Warner Brothers. So I'm like,
yeah. Hopefully, I think we will get that scene eventually, but yeah.
Oh, trust me, I'm sure eventually, give it a year or two, we will get the other two movies. I guarantee that's 100%. Happening.
Yeah.
Particularly with this new leadership saying we need to actually make stuff that people want to see.
What better content than Snyder Cut HBO Max, please?
What trended 1.5 million times on Twitter? I'm like, wait, we're giving you what astounds me is that the fans are basically telling Warner Brothers, we want to give you our money. We want to pay you. Just give us this, and we will come. We will even take care of the marketing for your movie. That's the funny part. It's like, I feel like we'll do the marketing for you.
And I feel like Zack Snyder, Henry Cavill, Restore Snyderverse trends literally almost every day on Twitter.
Oh yeah. Well, every time I check this, okay. As usual. And then the anti-Snyder people are always like, well, Ben Affleck doesn't want to come back. He didn't want to come back after Daredevil to do superhero movies. He didn't want to come back after Justice League, but he came back. I guarantee you, if Zack comes to calling, he will come back. Yeah. Guess what? It's happened multiple times.
I feel like that's the common factor. Like, these actors love Zack Snyder, and they would do anything for him. So like you said, if Zack
Can you repeat that? You kind of froze.
Froze. I feel like everyone loves Zack Snyder.
Yeah.
So I feel like if Zack Snyder came back with complete creative control, everyone will come back. It was like and do just like 2 and 3.
And then if Ben Affleck's hesitant, they're like, hey Ben, you can even do your HBO Max series that everyone wants to see where you fight Deathstroke.
Yes, amazing. Yes, please.
Which, first off, Joe Manganiello's Deathstroke looks amazing.
Like he looks awesome.
As a hardcore Slade Wilson fan, I was like, oh, this is so, particularly with the mohawk and the nightmare sequence. I'm like, this is so cool.
He looks so awesome, so good. Again, it's just like, another wasted opportunities. Like, dude, like you have it here. All of this is laid out in front of you. Like,
what's kind of funny is that this is what I tell people: like Zack Snyder or not, ignore if you like Zack Snyder. At least he has a plan.
Yeah. Exactly.
I'm like, Warner Brothers clearly doesn't know what they're doing.
They're just like literally throwing stuff at the wall to see what sticks. That's it. Let's throw that. Boom, boom. It's like, no, dude. Like Zack Snyder has a cohesive plan. So even if you don't want to use Zack Snyder, use his plan. Just do what he laid out in front of you.
Yeah, he gave you an outline movie, and that's why it's like when I read that Variety article talking about Zaslav wanting to create to separate DC from Warner Brothers and make it its own thing like Marvel Studios, and I'm like. Yeah. So you're saying you want to do something that should have been done when the minute they decided to make a cinematic universe?
Ding, ding, ding. Wow. Surprise.
What astounds me is that they're so desperate to copy Marvel, but they didn't copy one of the things that made Marvel successful.
A plan.
A plan. Yes, exactly.
And we're not even asking for like a 20-year plan. Just how about a 2-year plan? How about that? Just
By the way, the Snyderverse would have been ended last year.
Yeah, like we would have been done with this already.
And then Snyder intended to end with a Flashpoint movie to reboot it so you could do your own stuff.
It's just like, I don't understand it, man. I really don't get it. I don't get the mindset behind these people. It just doesn't make any sense.
What I am looking forward to is when, and I am putting emphasis on when the Snyderverse is restored, I'm looking forward to the anti-Snyder Twitter response. That's going to be so much fun.
Oh my God.
That's going to be so much fun.
Dude, when it gets restored, Twitter is going to be such a mess. It's literally going to be like the Nightmare timeline on Twitter.
Yeah, it's going to be that. It's going to be the Twitter nightmare. But the first sign that's going to get restored, is specific, that's confirmed, will be the Snyder Cut coming out.
Oh yeah. Oh, dude, like I'm like 100%.
Yeah, that's happening too.
Because yeah, I think that's going to be on board. So I asked somebody else's question. How do you think the Snyderverse should be announced?
I think they should do it on May 20th when he announced the Snyder Cut.
Wow, that's soon.
I think what he should honestly do is do a watch party of the Snyder Cut, and then at the end, like mirror it, because that's what Zack Snyder actually does in a lot of his films. If you notice, a lot of the themes from Man of Steel mirror in Justice League. So, or at least wait until it's like at close to the end of his contract with Netflix, because he still has an exclusive thing. So yeah. wait until then, or at least have Zaslav come out and say, we would love to do more stuff with Zack Snyder. Because once he announces that, that's it. It's over. Yeah, because Zack himself has said, just give me the phone call, I'll do it.
He's on board. Like, it's like, yeah, that would be absolutely amazing. I can't wait to see it.
Or what he could do, I already have the trailer in mind. What it would be is just a black screen. All you hear is Darkseid speaking, like giving some new dialogue. Yeah. And then it just says, Zack Snyder's Justice League, Part 2 and 3, coming to HBO Max. Oh, and then watch that explode.
Yeah.
Like the Snyder Cut announcement did.
And that's where World War III is going to happen on Twitter. Because you have both sides of people, the Snyder lovers and the anti-Snyder haters just going back and forth on Twitter.
There'll be people saying, this is the death of DC. I'm like, how?
I don't know. Yeah, I feel like, and by the way, for all the people who hate Snyder, you guys are still going to have your theatrical releases of DC. So this is not going to affect you whatsoever.
All we're saying is just let him do it on HBO. In fact, I think that's the ideal scenario, because once again, he can go as long as he wants. Yeah, as long as he wants,
and he's not restricted by time or rating system. He could, like you said, long-term storytelling. He could do whatever he wants, free reign.
And that's why I think Zack Snyder really shines, because we notice all of his extended cuts are the ones that everyone loves.
Yeah,
or in my mind, the only versions of the movies that exist.
Yeah, exactly.
Like let me put it this way, I refer to Zack Snyder's Justice League just as Justice League because I refuse to admit that other version came out.
Yeah, like to me, that cut is so irrelevant to me. I'm just like, yeah, that doesn't even exist to me anymore.
This way. Before it was announced, I hadn't watched it for like a couple of years, and then when it's announced, I'm like, why am I going to watch that version? I considered pre the movie coming out to watch it and like refresh myself on what we lost, and then I was like, why would I put myself through that?
Yeah, this is torture.
That's self-torture, exactly. I might as well check myself into a mental institution.
It's so bad.
It's like, but I definitely 100%. I will put my reputation on YouTube at risk and say it's gonna happen. There's no way it doesn't happen.
Yeah, I feel like it's gonna happen too, because like I said, like there's so many signs from Playstyle and Zack Snyder, kind of like they're literally like hinting, like, hey guys,
from Zaslav too.
Be patient. Yeah, Daz, like just like be patient. Don't worry. Just hold on. And I feel like it's gonna happen eventually.
Well, but let me ask you this: how do you think they're gonna announce it?
Oh man, like honestly, I thought like the simple way Zack Snyder would announce it would be him going on Twitter and simply putting hashtag restored, and all the people would know what it meant, and people would be like, "Whoa, what's gonna happen?" I thought that's one way he could do it, or maybe I thought like maybe at DC Fandom they would make like a special events and make that announcement there. But I don't know, like I'm really curious to see how they're gonna pull it off, because again, like it needs to be special and big.
Yeah. Well, the way I see it is that at Fandom, if Zack Snyder even shows up at Fandom, I'm like, I know exactly what they're announcing. All he has to do is show up in anything Warner Brothers or DC, and I'm like, let's go.
People are gonna freak out, like you said, yeah, exactly like you said. If we see Zack Snyder at DC Fandom, people are gonna be like, oh guys, it's happening.
And knowing Zack, he'll save until the very end of the event to announce it, because that's what he did in like Man of Steel, and you can tell that like he really wanted to tell us. And I'm watching this and I'm like, okay, when is he gonna get to it? And then someone asked the question and I'm like, and then he starts going around it, and then the minute Henry Cavill says, I think you should show it, I was like, wait, what? I kid you not. I was in the dentist's office the day that got announced. I go into it. This is before it was announced. I come out. I'm scrolling through Facebook, and then it was the Jurassic World meme that SOB did it, and then it's a black and white Wonder Woman image, and I'm like, how long was I in the dentist's office for? I'm like, what? Because I did not think that was going to happen at all.
Yeah, like we were all kind of hoping it would happen, but we weren't sure. But like you said, once we saw Henry Cavill, I think that's when people were like, I think it's gonna happen. I think it's gonna happen. And then he says, I think you should show it. I was like, okay, dude.
I'm like, and then the collective internet lost their minds.
Yeah. Oh my God. It was a pure joy to be a Snyderverse fan and a Zack Snyder fan that day. It was just like,
and the trailer, the first actual trailer came out the day after my birthday. So I was like, thank you.
Oh, that's awesome.
It came out on Valentine's Day. So I'm like, oh, thank you. It's one day late, but I'll take it. But it's like one of my things. The reason why I love this movie so much is because it brought us back to that grandeur of the Justice League, and it felt like it actually was the first time it felt like a Justice League movie as opposed to an Avengers movie. So really, and as a fan who got into DC because of the Justice League cartoons, I was like, oh my gosh, this feels so great.
Yeah, it feels so awesome. And by the way, at the end of Zack Snyder's Justice League, when you have that iconic shot of all of them standing together, doesn't the music sound like Justice League Unlimited?
Yes, or the one from the first two seasons where it's their silhouette.
Yeah,
I was like, oh my gosh. That I was like, wait a minute. Still brings me to tears right now. And also, speaking of mirroring, you notice they're all in the sun, harkening back to Man of Steel when the father said they will join you in the sun. Yeah, and I'm like, oh, okay, so I see what you're doing there.
It's so good. I love it.
I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so. One more thing I always tell people whenever they're anti-Snyder, you do realize that all your favorite versions of Aquaman and Wonder Woman were cast by Zack Snyder. There was no way they would have cast Jason Momoa to play Aquaman. No,
there's no way. And right, like I can't even picture anyone else but Jason Momoa as Aquaman. Like to me, he's just Aquaman. Like
badass. Why would you try and imagine anyone else as Aquaman? You're talking about a dude Aquaman that so cool. Surfed and a parademon through a building and then just did a hair flip.
He made Aquaman awesome. Like
he surfed on the Batmobile.
Yeah. Him riding the Batmobile with Affleck, awesome. He has like so many great moments in that film, which is amazing.
And let's not forget the part that really was like an eye opener to me, because I was always wondering after it was announced, Ray Fisher came out with all of his accusations.
Yeah,
I was wondering why you're so upset and everything. Then I see the movie and I'm like, oh, I understand now.
Yeah, like they completely butchered his part in
I'm like,
Justice League.
wait a second, you're all about holding people up and having like a diverse cast of characters and all that stuff, but you minimize the role severely of Cyborg and make it so he's the joke.
Yeah.
There's a word that starts with an R.
Yeah. Like he's literally the heart of the movie. Like he's so good in the movie, and the fact that you just cut him out and minimize his role and have him say "booyah," and there were so many stupid scenes in the Jocelyn cut. It just like it really baffles my mind. It's like how did this happen? It's like what
Flash
happened?
falling into Wonder Woman,
Oh
the constant camera shots of Wonder Woman's rear.
yeah, it's
I'm
just like
like, I'm
it's
like,
so
Josh, you're really Wonder Woman constantly obsessing over Steve Trevor.
yeah, it's so, there's so many weird looking shots, and the CGI looks horrible. Yeah, Ben Affleck smiling.
And let's
It's
not
like, why
forget,
is he
wait a
smiling?
second, you put a family next to a nuclear reactor. That's your first issue. And then you minimize Flash by having just run them out and then having Superman just lift a building flying through the area.
Yeah, the dialogue was atrocious. It was like everything about that movie is just it's like a bad nightmare, and I'm so thankful that we have Zack Snyder Justice League so we can erase that abomination.
It's gone to the point where as soon as I watch that movie, I refuse to watch any other Joss Whedon superhero movies anymore.
Yeah, just like yeah, like
I mean, I watched Avengers, but here's the thing: I'm convinced that he is the most overrated director, except for like Firefly. That I'll give you. But in terms of superhero movies, he's overrated because I watched Avengers and Age of Ultron. I'm like, Avengers was only popular because it was the first time we'd ever gotten that. Age of
yeah.
Ultron sucked because it was Age of Ultron.
Yeah, and the first Avengers movie, it looks like a TV show. It doesn't have like that cinematic quality to it, like a Zack Snyder film. So, like I said, it's like I said, at the very first time, like you're watching all these superheroes together, you're like, oh, but over time, it doesn't have that rewatchability. Like it kind of like falls flat. You're like, oh,
Case in
okay.
point, when I saw Justice League, I was like, oh, okay, this is a Justice League movie. And then Zach put up the first photo. Oh yeah, Darkseid was supposed to show up, and I'm like, what?
It's like, wait,
Black suit Superman. Wait. Yeah, exactly. Come again? Wonder Woman's supposed to decapitate Steppenwolf. By the way, Steppenwolf was also heavily butchered.
Oh my god, he was a joke in that movie. Joke. It was like
what? Plus, his design. I'm like, why are you putting Liam Neeson in the movie?
Yeah. Why is there a PS2 video game character in this movie? It's like this doesn't make any sense.
And then when you see, like, first off, what astounded me watching the Snyder Cut is how good the VFX was, based upon the fact that they finished the VFX in like a relatively short time. Like Steppenwolf's emoting, the Flash running back in time. I'm like, you did all of this in that short amount of time?
And it all looks so visually stunning. It looks so beautiful. At the Speed Force scene, with the Flash running through time, looks glorious.
I want to take screenshots of the entire movie and just hang it on my wall as art.
Yeah.
Superman doing this.
Exactly. That entire movie looks like a painting. It
looks like a comic book. It looks like an Alex Ross comic book. And that's what Zach said, is that he tries he always tries to like mirror comic book panels in his movie. You can definitely see it. So I'm like, that's why I love this stuff, because it's like you're going back to what you said about this movie being the most comic booky. And I'm like, in this case, it's not an insult, because it's like, it's that first off, you're based on comic book characters, so it has to be kind of comic booky. And then I'm fine with the movie being comic booky if it's not campy, and it's sort of like it calls to mind certain like famous like panels from the comic books, and Zack Snyder's thing is basically a comic book. That's why if they wanted to restore it, but said for right now they couldn't do it, just bring him back, have him do it as a comic book, watch it sell out, a la when he had Final Crisis. Like, I love right that. There. And that's why we covered Final Crisis on the channel, and I still don't understand the storyline, by the way. But it's like
it's confusing.
It's like it's right there, and then all the absolute Final Crisis like sold out of Amazon. I was like, just have him. What they should do is just send him boxes of comic books all the time. Just have him put it in his photos, and then guess what? DC's financial troubles will be solved inside of 10 seconds.
Yeah, exactly. I think even Zack Snyder pitched an idea for a comic book series, and I don't know if it was one of the DC Comics head writers. They were like, no interest. Start like, well, they said no. I was like,
And,
why?
and
Why
I'm
did
like,
you say no?
what's funny is that these people, going back to, they're always saying Zack Snyder's not comic book accurate. His story is not comic book accurate. You do realize that two of the people that helped him create the storyline were Jim Lee and Jeff Johns, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
I'm like, guys, you're sounding like idiots right about now. And with Jeff Johns, like this way, I have to do some hard separation of art and artists on that one.
Yeah. And isn't it like funny that Zack Snyder inadvertently helped sell Final Crisis?
I know, right? I'm like, that's what I'm saying. Just send him boxes of graphic novels every week and just say, just put these in your photos. They will sell out.
Dark Side War. Oh yeah, just put that in your photo, Zach. Okay, yeah, there you go. Dark Side War. There you go.
It doesn't even have to be the subject of the photo. It wasn't. It was just like right there.
It's like I get it. Like I don't understand.
Or you could just say, I really like that panel of Batman on the Mobius chair. Watch, Dark Side War will sell out.
Yeah, exactly.
Crime Syndicate? You mean there's an evil Justice League? Crime Syndicate books will sell out. Forever Evil will sell out.
I really like that Quarter Vowels book. Quarter Vowels. Oh, what's Quarter Vowels? Okay, so
he could take like the worst storyline. Amazon's attack. Huh. Oh, okay. There you go. It will sell out. And once again, it's like this is money on the table. Just give this guy, involve this guy somehow, and guess what? I'm convinced that if they allowed him to come in with full-on creative freedom, particularly now with the MCU being in flux, DC could surpass Marvel, which it should be able to surpass Marvel because in my mind, it's better.
Yeah, they can absolutely just build off the like spin-offs from his films into comic book series, into animated movies, into whatever, and like you said, it would sell out because people are invested in his world, and I think maybe because they always say no, I think maybe they're afraid because they don't want the Snyderverse to be taking over popularity over what they're doing on the theatrical side and with their current plans, but. It's a win-win for you guys anyway, because at the end of the day, we're giving you money.
DC is selling. It's the brand is being sold.
Yeah.
Why you want this brand to compete with Marvel, but you're directly sabotaging a major revenue source. Instead of turning the fans against you, I have a brilliant idea, Warner Brothers. Let the fans work for you. It's a genius idea, right?
Yeah. Free promotion. There you go.
Literally, you have to spend a cent on promotion if you restore the Snyderverse. Because guess what? We'll do it for you. We did it with the Snyder Cut.
We will buy every single product that you put out in front of us.
We will fly planes over the entire United States with banners that said Snyderverse, Snyderverse, Snyderverse.
Exactly. It's just like I don't get it, man. I don't like it's right there. We want to give you money, Warner Brothers.
Literally, yes. It's like I've never seen an organization work so hard to not make money.
Yeah, it's weird. I've never seen it before. I've never seen a studio say like, "Yeah, we don't want your money, fans. Sorry."
And you wonder why Zaslav came in and said, "You guys are fired. Get out of here."
He's like, "What are you doing?"
He's like, first off, the first issue is why aren't you guys using Superman?
Oh my, that's another.
That's the other issue. I'm like, you notice how we haven't had a solo Superman movie since Man of Steel?
Yeah. Is like which is insane. Like Superman, arguably the most iconic, popular character of all time, the godfather of all superheroes.
Yeah, he started your universe.
Yeah. And you have Henry Cavill, who's arguably again the best Superman, and
he wants to come back.
Yeah, and you're just letting him sit on the sidelines. Why?
I'm like, how? What? And my favorite part is that they give other directors like James Gunn full creative freedom. And I'm like, what?
Yes. It's like, what? You have Ben Affleck and Batman. Like you could literally make a world's finest movie that will make $1 billion. Like I'm not even joking, $1 billion.
I think it could.
And you're not, and you're just like, yeah, no interest.
Because remember,
we're more interested in Blue Beetle and a Justice League Dark that may or may not come in the next 10,000 years.
And J.J. Abrams' Superman movie, which I'm still convinced is not going to come out.
Yeah, I'm just like, wow.
But it's like, I'm like, wait a second. There are polls consistently. Whenever you see a Twitter poll, who's the best Batman? Guess who? 100% of the time comes out, and you're not using him. I'm like, what? It's like they're blind, dude.
He's like, well, yeah, Ben Affleck. We've never heard of him. His Batman. Oh yeah, we're not gonna use that. We're gonna bring in Michael Keaton. Yeah, Michael. All the kids love Michael Keaton these days. It's like, dude, like again, no disrespect to Michael Keaton. I love Michael Keaton, but that's in the A. It's like no one cares. It's just like,
and we're gonna replace Superman with Supergirl. So you're gonna replace the most famous superhero of all time with his cousin. That's at best a D tier character.
Yeah, or how about you just do a Man of Steel sequel and introduce Supergirl?
That's fine. We're not saying don't bring in the character. We're saying also have Superman. He's kind of important to this. He's kind of important to this.
This isn't, all due respect to, this isn't Ant-Man. This is Superman. Why aren't we using Superman, for God's sakes? It doesn't make any sense.
And I'm like, wait a second. So you're making a movie that's basically Flashpoint, but you won't bring in Thomas Wayne?
Jeffrey D. Morgan?
He said he wants to do it. So I'm like, why won't you do? He would make a fantastic Thomas Wayne.
Oh, he would be amazing.
I'm like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, and by the way, Zack Snyder literally introduced them in BBS.
Yes. Yeah. And he introduced the Martha Joker, arguably in a way that became a meme, but still, it's like both of them said if asked to come back, they would be like, okay.
They wanted to.
everyone associated with the Snyderverse, it's kind of funny. They want to come back and do the Snyderverse.
Yeah, they want to do it.
That's the funny part.
It's just like, and they just won't do it. It's like, why? Like, you have amazing actors who want to play these roles. It's just like, and you're just like, no interest. Sorry. Yeah, we're just gonna put that on the sidelines. I don't. And then
don't forget, they called the fan base toxic. That's a great idea for a business. But by the way, they said that after the Justice League came out. Here was their issue. They had that statement come out after Justice League came out, and everyone was on board with it. So they're calling everyone toxic.
Exactly. Like yeah, mainstream celebrities talk about Zack Snyder's Justice League and praising it. Like it got so much press, and you would think any other studio would be like, wow, like people are talking about it in a positive light. Let's actually utilize this and make a brand. And Cernoff literally came out that Monday morning. He's like, yeah, we're not gonna follow up on this. Sorry. Like, are you kidding me?
I'm like, everyone, including the news agencies, were like, what? What? This is popular. Why aren't you doing this?
It's like, are you serious?
I'm like, wait a second. I don't know that much about. I've never run a giant movie studio, but I'm fairly certain that you generally want to continue things that are popular.
Yeah, especially like once the Snyder Cut came out and it got so much praise, I was like, oh, dude, this is it. They're gonna restore it. I was like on that train, and then of course that Monday came, just like,
and I'm like, wait a second. It's not like your movies that have been coming out have been like tremendous box office successes, short of like Aquaman and Shazam, but every other DC movie up until maybe the Batman has been a bomb.
Yeah, or has it been hitting that high mark that most Marvel films make, or
have made less than Zack Snyder movies? So
yeah,
it's like, what? Your way is not working.
And he had Joker, which is a $1 billion hit, but wasn't even part of the DC Cinematic Universe. That was his own offshoot brand. So just like
shows. Wait a second. You mean that in a multiverse, which they keep saying, you can have different versions of the same character?
Yeah.
Whenever I hear Warner talk about multiverse, you know what comes to mind? That one line from The Princess Bride where he's like, you keep saying that word. I'm not sure if you know what it means. I'm like, wait a second.
It's a multiverse, except we're not going to use Zack Snyder's Justice League. But
that's everything else. Even Zack said, "I understand my stuff's not canon; it's an Elseworld." So I'm like, even he's admitting it's on a different world in the multiverse.
Yeah, even in the film back in 2017, Steppenwolf mentions multiverse. He actually mentions the word multiverse.
I think it was in the Snyder Cut that.
It was the Snyder Cut. But keep in mind the Snyder Cut was supposed to come out in 2017.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm like, wait. Wait, no, the Amazon say he's gone back to his universe.
Yeah, I was just like,
I'm like, wait a second. Wait, I'm like, I don't understand this. Who is leading this organization is what I want to know.
It's just clueless executives who don't understand the IP, who don't love the IP, who clearly don't have a grasp on what they have. It's just like, again, change. It needs to change.
Yeah, it's like I had Gabe El Taib on my show like a couple months ago. He's a former DC Comics colorist, and he was talking about the issue with these people is that they're executives that come in and want to tell the creatives how to create after they hire them to be creative. He's like, no, let me do my job. You hired me to do a job. And I'm like, wait a second, Warner, if you didn't like what Zack Snyder was going to do to your characters, couldn't you have researched what he did before you hired him?
Yeah.
Don't hire him if you don't. You hired him to create a DC cinematic universe. Let him make the cinematic universe.
Yeah. And don't worry about what Marvel's doing. You have your own IP. Concentrate on what makes DC special, what makes it unique, and focus on that. Don't worry about Rotten Tomatoes. Don't worry about all the bloggers on YouTube. Just worry about creating a cohesive universe that people want to see.
And it's kind of funny is that everyone that praises Justice League, because those people exist, they're always the fans of like the golden age to silver age of comics, and that's it. It's like the Superman carrying a chain, and I'm like, you do realize there's a reason why they don't do that anymore. It's not relevant anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm like,
but they don't understand that. They don't get that.
Wait a second. I love also a lot of the creatives don't understand the characters because Patty Jenkins took away Wonder Woman's sword and shield for Wonder Woman 2 because she said too aggressive. She's a warrior.
Yeah, and I think even a fan on Twitter asked her a question. He's like, "Hey, for Wonder Woman 3, are you going to introduce Cersei?" And Patty by the way, this is on Twitter. You can literally find it. Patty Jenkins responded, "I don't know who that is."
What? She's Wonder Woman's Lex Luthor. You don't know. You claim to be an expert on Wonder Woman?
Literally, you can find this on Twitter. I swear to God.
James Wan clearly has done his research into Aquaman.
Yeah, I loved it. I don't know how you feel about Aquaman.
I really loved Aquaman, man.
I think it's a fun film.
Loved it. It was fun. I really don't care if it's connected to the Snyderverse. It's a really good movie. Same thing with Shazam. I enjoyed Shazam.
Yeah, I enjoyed Shazam too.
My point is, these two directors understand the character. And I'm like, wait a second, Patty. How could you have such a dramatic shift from Wonder Woman 1? You know why? Because guess who was a producer in Wonder Woman 1? Guess who was involved in Wonder Woman 1?
And he also had the writer Alan Heinberg, who actually wrote comics. He wrote Wonder Woman comics, so that's why the film was so good because he actually knows the character.
And I'm like, why wouldn't you do more of what? Because Wonder Woman was like one of the most popular movies of all time, and I'm like, why wouldn't you do more of that? Instead, she tried to make a Superman 78 knockoff.
Yeah,
which basically had Wonder Woman raping someone. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
What?
I think what Patty was trying to do was make the Linda Carter TV show, but modernize it for this generation. But it doesn't work because no one really cares about Linda Carter's Wonder Woman. All due respect to Linda Carter. I love Linda Carter.
I mean,
but it just didn't translate well.
Plus, and this is another criticism for Justice League, why it shouldn't have come out. And this links back to Wonder Woman, because it's such a dramatic tonal shift from the previous movie. It's like BVS to Justice League. I'm like, what happened here? Or it's like Wonder Woman to Wonder Woman 84. Plus the fact that she clearly has never read a comic that features Maxwell Lord or Cheetah.
Oh my God. Yeah, those adaptations were just
you could have done some great stuff with Maxwell Lord. Oh my God.
And Cheetah too. Cheetah's a great character in the comics. And you could have explored that so much more deeply. And it was like a Saturday morning cartoon. That's what it was. That's what they were.
I'm like, you executives do realize that no one wants Saturday morning cartoons anymore, right? By the way, even the DCAU, the Justice League Unlimited, Batman the Animated Series, they got really freaking dark.
Yeah.
I'm like, you claim that's the best version. That's why I always tell people also, because inevitably they'll be fans of those universes. I'm like, you clearly haven't watched those shows ever.
Yeah, never. Especially like one of my favorite episodes from Batman the Animated Series is Over the Edge. That's with Scarecrow, Gas's
Mhm.
Batgirl,
Yeah.
and they think Batgirl died because
Mhm.
Scarecrow killed her. And I was like watching that as a kid. I'm like, wait, Batgirl died? Like, wait, Bane killed Batman and James Gordon? Like that episode was really, really dark. Even as a kid, I was just like, whoa. So I think Warner Brothers need to stop being afraid to take these properties into like really dark corners. Like
Yeah.
you can still have your light moments here and there, but for the most part, DC as a brand, it's mostly for adults.
It's
Like,
dark.
really
It's dark. You notice most of the DC really popular storylines are the dark ones. I mean,
yeah, they really are.
it depends on the character because Shazam, I'm fine being a joke fest because that's the character.
Yeah.
Aquaman, fine because guess what? That's the character that Zach created, and you know what? It works for him. But it's like when you have Wonder Woman, and then but I love how people. By the way, there are some people that think that and I got into this argument that they said that's not made for kids, the Snyderverse. But these are the same people that hold up the Nolan trilogy.
Yeah.
I'm like, it gets to the point where I'm just like, if you just don't like Zack Snyder's version of the characters, just tell me that. But don't give me these clearly refutable arguments that are like not even arguments, they're like weak assertions, bro.
And by the way, like kids, I don't know if you know this, but they really like all this dark stuff.
And by the way, and this is what I responded with, no matter how dark it is, parents are still going to take their kids to it.
Yeah. Yeah. Have you heard of Ryan Reynolds' Deadpool? Because I know a lot of kids who went to see that movie and they liked it.
Yeah. I'm like, have you met today's kids? It's just, there are these people that they're the same people that said that these movies have to be marketed to kids first. And I'm like, they did that. And guess what happened? Justice League.
Yeah. And by the way, there's this thing called the internet where kids can go in and really see messed up stuff. So
yeah, I'm like, you're not really saving them from anything. Yeah. I'm like, what are you doing? And I'm like, these are the same people. Because my problem is that, and I told them, okay, so you don't want DC to evolve. Because yes, there was a time when DC was like that with the Super Friends, but they just detected that, guess what? These characters have to grow because otherwise we're going to be irrelevant.
Yeah, exactly. Like if you took the Christopher Reeve Superman 78 film to today, it's not going to work.
Yeah.
And by the way, how do I know that? Superman Returns. They literally tried to replicate 78 Superman into the modern generation, and it just didn't connect at all.
Yeah, it's like my problem because I saw the Superman 78 movie shortly before Man of Steel, but my problem with it, and this is why I love Man of Steel so much, is that with Superman 78, he shows up on Earth. You have this being that's like got godlike powers that can, to quote Batman, burn the whole world down. He shows up and says, I'm going to help you guys. And everyone's cool with it. I'm like, that would so not happen. Not even back then when that movie's taking place, that would never happen.
No, never, not in a million years. And again, that's why it's important to, for these characters to stay relevant to today. Because, you don't want these characters to be stale. Or be like stuck in amber, like we were in Jurassic Park or something like that.
Yeah.
Like you have to constantly keep the essence of who these characters are, but update it. And that's what Zack Snyder did. Yeah,
it's like a lot of these critics of Snyder, they want these characters to show up and then from movie one be the way they are when they're the most experienced superheroes ever. But people don't realize that Man of Steel takes place around 3 days or so, and he's been a superhero for like, he just discovered he's an alien with godlike powers. Of course, he's gonna make mistakes. And I'm like, why did Superman kill Zod? You notice when he killed Zod to save a family, he didn't go, that was awesome. He was like, no.
He broke down in tears and agony.
I'm like, what? This wasn't Injustice Superman. And then I'm like, what?
But these are people who don't read the comics. They really watch the cartoons. All they know, all the experience of Superman is like either Smallville or the Dean Cain show or the Chris Reeve Superman films. That's it. That's their basic knowledge of Superman.
And it's like these people, I'm like, you clearly haven't read the comics. Have you read Blackest Night where people are eating each other's hearts? I'm like, you clearly, like you said there, have you read Dark Side War?
Yeah, or Tom Taylor's or Tom Tyler's deceased. Have you read that storyline?
Dude, I'm like, you clearly have not read any standard DC storyline because every bit of it is dark.
Yeah.
I'm like, even Superman, it's not the Christopher Reeves version.
No,
if anything,
far from it.
And what's kind of funny is that everyone tries to copy Snyder because if you notice, the Batmobile shows up in comics. The Steppenwolf design is now the canon DC Comics design.
Yep.
The person that made Superman and Lois indicated that they were inspired by Zack Snyder's Superman, so he must be doing something right.
Yeah, they even copied the Nightmare timeline suit of the Batman costume in the Batman comics with Batman Catwoman. It's just like, so obviously, you know, they are inspired by Zack Snyder's work.
and once again, whenever I tell people Batman doesn't kill, and I'm like, okay, so in the comics, and I'm like, I could give you, and then they'll always say, well, that doesn't count. Well, that doesn't count. Well, that doesn't count. Well, I'm like, wait a second. Your argument is that Batman has never killed. I'm giving you examples in the main continuity or in the continuity before another reboot, which, by the way, according to the DC Omniverse, it's all canon, so it's all happened. So Batman's pretty much a mass murderer at this point.
Yeah.
By the way, Batman's first appearance, he had a sidearm.
Yes. And there's a comic in the 1930s where he's literally hanging a dude from a bat plane.
Oh, his first appearance, he knocks a dude into a vat of acid.
Yes, he's literally the Punisher.
I'm like, wait, you guys clearly have never read this character. Even Superman. Wait, they're like, Superman wouldn't kill Zod. Yeah, he did. He does it all the time in the comic books.
Yeah, like having arguments with these people is like just so futile. It's just like, I'm not even gonna bother because you guys don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, exactly. Which is why I'm gonna be so happy when they restore the Snyderverse and I can see the
God,
that's gonna be so good. It's gonna be the greatest thing on earth. I may do an entire episode just reading tweets.
Oh my God. Well, you already know that people are just gonna like delete all their tweets where they said, oh no, I always knew the Snyderverse was gonna be restored.
Oh yeah, it'll never happen. It'll never happen. It'll never happen.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh! And then I'll just share like this would be the time to start taking screenshots of these people, so you can just say, "Oh no, you weren't. No, you weren't. We have receipts. We have receipts."
Yeah.
I'm like,
this you?
Yeah, and I'm like, the problem, and then I'll end this on this is that my other problem with these people, and which strongly undermines their argument, is that then when they just do personal attacks against Zach, I'm like, okay, dude. I'm like, I get. So you're critiquing him because you don't like the guy now who you don't know. There are people that call him a fascist and a sexist, and I'm like, wait a second. Of the two Justice League movies, which one does better by women?
Yeah. And by the way, and Zack Snyder, like he's like the only like director in comic book films that always promotes strong female characters. Like most of his films are strong female characters. He highlights them.
Yeah.
So I don't understand that he's a misogynist or that he hates women. I'm like, where? Like,
I'm like, when Steppenwolf goes, this one's mine, and then Wonder Woman goes, I belong to no one.
Yeah.
I'm like, wait a second here. It's like, oh, the Amazons, we have no fear. And I'm like, where was this in the other movie?
Yeah. Oh, that's right. Joss Whedon took him out. Oh, okay, that makes sense.
They claim that they want female empowerment in this, and I'm like, wait, which movie? Because you're getting rid of the director who literally in all of his movies strong female characters that aren't annoying like Captain Marvel. So let me be clear on that, because it's like strong female characters that don't disrespect the male characters. That's why I love his movies, because he can do that.
And not to mention, Zack Snyder wants to include strong African-American superheroes like Cyborg, like Martian Manhunter, like John Stewart. Or by the way, you took him out. Zack Snyder wants to include all these heroes, and when you're like, yeah, we have to remove some of the black characters because we can't have this. And you're like, why? Like what?
Iris West.
Iris West. Yeah. It's like, really?
Like, and then I was listening to a YouTube video, and then they said it's funny how whenever these people try to show you they're not racist, they always overcorrect and then end up looking racist. And I'm like, wait a second, you had Cyborg is arguably the most powerful member of the Justice League, and you minimize his role. They explain his powers in the movie.
and he's cool. He's awesome. It's just like, why did you remove any of this? Like, why did you remove Martian Manhunter, which would have been awesome? Why did you remove Wayne T. Carr's Green Lantern? Like, all these amazing little moments that we could have seen for hardcore, like our first live action Jon Stewart. We could have had that.
Oh, and by the way, ignore the fact that DC would have had the first mainstream black superhero because this was going to come out pre-Black Panther.
Yeah.
So you could have had that distinction.
Like it's just like, again.
And we were going to get a Cyborg movie. Let's not forget about that.
I don't get
it. It just astounds me, man. It is astounding. It's kind of funny. I can't explain it because there's no way to justify this now. It's like a lot of these choices. I'm like pre-Snyder Cut. I'm like, okay, I could have justified some stuff in there that they changed this and all that. But then when I saw the Snyder Cut, I'm like, there's no way they can ever justify the Whedon Cut ever again. No. Yeah, and even when the articles came out that they knew was terrible when they released it.
Yeah, I was just like, what?
So you release a knowingly bad product. My problem also is that, so you want to fire a director, so you exploit the suicide of his daughter to do so.
Yeah, it's just like,
wait a second there.
Like that was really just a scumbag move, and it just shows how bad these people are at the people at the top of this business. Just so like petty. Really, dude. Yeah, it's so petty. It's so disgusting. Just like, why? Just like, dude, just like, again, it makes you root for Zack Snyder and the cast even more.
Yeah, I know. Like, okay, you know what? The best part was when the Snyder Cut won the Oscar. One of the executives that took that wanted that exact scene out was in the audience.
Oh yeah, Toby Emmerich.
that was the greatest thing of all. And then to pass off, Army of the Dead, which Warner Brothers passed off on, won the other Oscar. So it was like he had to sit there and be shown to be a moron.
And by the way, Army of the Dead franchise is going to expand onto Netflix. So good job, Warner Brothers. I'll pass it on.
And by the way, when Army of the Dead came out, it did really well for Netflix. Yeah. And Netflix, look at what Netflix is doing. Don't worry, Zach. We'll give you spin-offs. We'll give you creative freedom. You're all good. Do whatever you want. Just give us more Zach content.
He's like, wait a minute. If we actually promote Zack Snyder films, people will see it. It'll actually do well.
Oh, and by the way, the Snyder Cut is now on the European Netflix. And so #1 thing watch.
Yeah, it's #1 everywhere it goes. So people are literally telling you, hey, we want this.
In all the DC marketing since the Snyder Cut came out, they use the Snyder Cut. So I'm like, for a company that wants to go away from the Snyder Cut, you seem to be using the Snyder Cut a lot in your marketing.
Yeah. By the way, I don't know if you watch Superman and Lois on the CW. I really like that show.
I haven't watched any of season 2 yet.
Yeah, but that show is heavily inspired by Batman.
Oh yeah,
heavily.
The camera angles.
The Snyder influence is amazing.
Yeah, I'm like, wait a second, and that show can get pretty dark too. I'm like, what?
Yeah. And it's like, I don't hear any complaints about that. It's like, is anyone going to talk about that? No? Okay, just Snyder?
You know why?
Okay, cool.
Because compared to the other CW shows, it's a masterpiece.
Oh my God, yeah.
But it's also a really good show. I will give you that.
It really is.
But actually, the true test with that will be season 3. Because normally the Arrowverse shows, they're good for 2 seasons. Yeah. And then they go downhill. If this is good for 3 seasons, then we know we got something here.
Yeah, we have something special. Let's hold on to it.
I'm like, wait a second. But my favorite part is that they use Snyder and everything else, but they won't give him his movies.
They will literally steal every frame, every slow motion shot, everything that looks Snyderish. Okay, we can use that template, but let's not hire Zack Snyder,
including screenshots like on HBO Max and the little banner for the. Yeah. I'm like, what? I'm like, it doesn't surprise me at this point because I'm like, okay, so you just don't, at that point, I know for a fact it's just because they don't like Zack Snyder because there's no other explanation.
It has to be. I don't know what Zack Snyder did to these people that they hate him so much.
His movies actually made money while theirs didn't. That's why.
She's like,
it's almost like executives should not. It's almost like executives should not be making movies. I'm like, no, I guarantee you can this.
It's like the uncreative, creative doing all the creative stuff. It's just like, dude, just like you're the money guy. You're the one who handles all the business details. Let the creators actually do what they do best: create magic for you guys.
Exactly. Just say, okay, we want this. Go do it.
Yeah.
Go do it. Like this way, if you didn't like what Zack Snyder did you should have done more research into his movie style and all that stuff. And then you could have said, okay, I want to move on to, we'll move on from him. But you hire the guy and then sabotage him. You notice they blame Justice League on Zack.
Yeah, which is like, what? Like these people are crazy. Like what?
You know, it says written by Joss Whedon right there in the credits.
Yeah.
It got to the point where, by the way, when the Snyder Cut was announced, I went to my iTunes account and deleted Justice League from my account.
Yeah,
I'm like, nope, I'm good.
I didn't even purchase it. I watched it once. I was like, that's it. I'm done. I never want to see this movie ever again.
I purchased it, but I've never watched it. I'm like, why would I have the better version right here?
Exactly. Have this masterpiece and have this trash right next to me.
By the way, it was called a global phenomenon by Warner Brothers. So like, they're even praising his movies.
Because it is. Like everywhere it goes, all over the world, it's number one for a reason. People, they're literally telling you, hey, we want more of this. Can we get more of this, please?
It's like they're saying, Zach, we love your movies, but we hate you.
Make us more money, but we hate you.
What Zach should say is that you don't have to like me, but I can guarantee you I can make you money. Look what I did with Final Crisis. DC's having trouble selling comic books. I just sold you out a comic book.
Yeah, exactly.
By having it tangentially in my photo.
And it wasn't even like in crystal clear frame. You're like, you could kind of tell, oh, is that Final Crisis? And then boom, it's sold out. Just like,
that was one of my most popular videos that week. That was one of my most popular videos that week. I'm like, well, I guess I have to monitor Zach's thing closely to see, okay, any reference. If he says anything about Darkseid War, I'm going to go, we're covering Darkseid War again.
Anything Zack Snyder covers with DC, we're going to talk about it. It's like, yes, let's talk about it.
Because why not? But anyway, I think that's a good place to leave it. All right, Truth, it was a pleasure having you on, bro. I enjoyed ranting about Warner Brothers with you.
Dude, thank you so much. This was such a blast. Thank you for having me on. It was awesome. Again, it's nice to talk with other DC Snyder fans. And like I said, like when the Snyderverse gets restored, I hope you have me on again because I would love to talk with you guys.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. We will be doing that.
Absolutely.
All right, everyone. Have a good weekend. I will see you in the next one. Stay at work, everyone. Bye-bye.